Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With the latest WWE edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are not only here to break down everything that happened in the world of WWE over the last week in Perth, Australia. We are also taking a brief second look back at WWE Crown Jewel 2025. As we get into today's episode, things are not going exactly as planned here at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. We will get into that momentarily, but allow me off the top to remind you that here at Getting Over,
it's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show, just like the most recent 5-star review we got from Super Steve 315. I feel like that should probably be 316 Steve, but nevertheless, Super Steve 315. The Silver King and Vintage are the best, and the headline runs out, so I can't see what the rest of what you had to say. I'm going to assume best people to ever exist in the world. Either way, we'll take it. 5 stars. Just wanted to leave a quick 5-star review for you guys because you deserve all the support you can get for the high quality of content you consistently put out. Great analysis without ridiculous hyperbole. Never prisoners of the moment. Always reviewing the product and offering historical context and reasonable takes and predictions, and without ads. Keep up the good work. Just wanted to add 2 personal takes real quick. The first, Jacob Fatu's finisher should be called the full moonsault as a play on his Samoan werewolf moniker. Completely agree. Great name. And this latest Roman J storyline should definitely lead to Jay interfering in a title match and squashing everyone while wearing a Wreck Everyone and Yeet shirt. Love the show. Thanks again, guys. Second take there, probably a little bit too on the nose, but wouldn't totally hate it. I am all in, though, with full moonsault. That is a great name for Jacob Fatu's finisher, and it's really exactly what they should call it. I don't know what else they would use. I now cannot think of a name that would be potentially better than that. So we will call it the full moonsault here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, and let's see if it gets picked up elsewhere. We appreciate very much, Steve, your 5-star review, and we acknowledge you.
Acknowledge.
Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
And you know what? Since you mentioned that we're an ad-free show, then that allows me to acknowledge something else, that here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. As you mentioned, we're a free show. We're an ad-free show. This is how we make any coin for all of our work and effort. We would greatly appreciate all of your financial support, and you get bonus content as well. We had a brand new news post last Friday, a fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling on SmackDown. I'm realizing I just forgot to do one after Raw Monday morning, but it's because it was the morning. I didn't remember to do it immediately after. I always do it at night right before I go to bed after Monday Night Football. But we'll be back on track with the fastest 5 and everything else when you subscribe at buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Lastly, as we get into the show, let Silver King remind you where you can find us on social media at Getting Overcast everywhere. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news analysis, highlights, and all of that good stuff. Of course, on YouTube, when you subscribe over there, you can listen to full-length audio episodes and watch full-length video interviews. We have a new interview coming to the Getting Over Wrestling podcast before the end of the month. Extremely excited for this conversation. We have not taped it yet. It is with someone we have been discussing on this podcast relatively frequently in terms of their gimmick and why we've been confused about it of late. So that person who's been with WWE for a long time will be joining this show in the next couple of weeks. We have a couple other pretty big time interviews that are, let's say, in the ether. We're trying to make them happen, and we're just really waiting for some confirmations. But sooner than later, hopefully, They will be joining us here at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast as well. Now, this is normally the part of the show where I'd bring in vintage Chris Vanini and we would wax poetic about the week in WWE. And I got to tell all of you, we both tried to make this happen, okay? We had plans to tape the show and everything was going swimmingly. And unfortunately, I'm not going to get into his specific personal business. I would call it a non-emergency required a hospital visit in Vintage's life. So therefore, at the time we were scheduled to tape the show, he was not able to tape the show. So what we're going to do is this, because we need his takes on not just WWE Crown Jewel, but the big time storyline that transpired at the end of Raw on Monday night. What I'm going to look to do is bring Vintage into this week's Thursday show. We'll kick off that episode with his takes on Crown Jewel, his takes on the big storyline that WWE brought forward Monday night. And then, of course, we'll talk NXT, AEW, and you will also get a review of TNA Bound for Glory. I watched the 4 major matches on that show, broke them down. We're going to discuss everything that happened, and also, by the way, how it relates to NXT, because there were multiple NXT and WWE related people on that show. So we have a ton that we're going to be talking about on Thursday. We have a ton that we're talking about Tuesday here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. We're going to start with a brief second look at WWE Crown Jewel. Then, of course, we will move into the main event and the good, the bad, and the ugly, breaking down everything that happened on TV this week. There are timestamps in the episode description, so you can stick around if you so choose. As always, I hope you listen to every single part of the show. And like I said, we will ensure that vintage Chris Vanini is brought into this program this week so we can talk about Crown Jewel, so we can talk about the big storyline Monday night on Raw. So let's start with that WWE Crown Jewel second look. We're going to go match by match. I'll adjust any match grades that I see fit on second watch, but I'll also give you some additional thoughts on a couple of these matches. Really, some of them, I didn't have that much else to say. John Cena versus AJ Styles. I gave this 5 stars on the instant analysis, and folks, we are sticking with that. It was indeed an A+ match. So look, I'm not a clap when the movie ends or clap when the plane lands type of person, especially the latter. Basically, if the performer is not in front of me, then clapping just feels performative, right? I will say that when this match ended live, initial first watch, I clapped a couple times, like just naturally before I caught myself. That's what the feels were like when Cena Styles ended, and specifically during the Bray Wyatt tribute in the middle of the match. This could have been a WrestleMania Night 2 main event. It felt that epic. And again, that's without it really having any type of storyline coming into it. When it comes to praising the Perth crowd, here more than any match this weekend is where they truly understood the assignment. Going insane for Sister Abigail, immediately to a person, whipping out the fireflies and then singing "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands Together." You couldn't have scripted it better than they did it. This match, for me, it furthers the conversation that we've been having about Cena's retirement tour a couple weeks ago. It's not all bad. It should not be thought back on as a failure, though we can correctly point out it was neither maximized nor perfected and did have a fair share of massive disappointments. In fact, I'd go so far as to say, after this match, the good now outweighs the bad. But this closing run from SummerSlam till now has been spectacular, and WWE has every opportunity to land the damn plane at the end. And landing the plane in this case is not so much about storytelling, though it would be nice if his final match has some type of through line. It's more about beat by beat ensuring this guy goes out the way a legend needs to go out. And I think WWE, one of the reasons why the feelings about this are so mixed is the storytelling opportunities WWE had extensively with multiple TV appearances over a period of multiple months. They used for the failed heel turn. Whereas now he's doing incredible work and you're loving pretty much every beat of what you're getting from Cena, but he's not able to sell it or build it on television. And that's one of the major problems with this entire situation, in addition to the fact that completely without necessity, they gave a month-long build to a Logan Paul match when that could have been used for different performers and different people and different storytelling for Cena that perhaps could have built up a number of matches here at the end of the run. So they can land the plane, and it can be a perfect landing, but that doesn't change all the turbulence that we experienced on the journey. Michael Cole, I want to give him a shout out. He was much better calling this match. We were highly critical of him in prior homage matches, misnaming moves, all this stuff that Cole was doing. He was on point here, Wade Barrett as well. So shout out to both of them. And I got to tell you, man, at a combined age of 96, both of these guys, Styles and Cena, 48, I got to believe this is the oldest 5-star match I've ever given out. I can't think of another that would even come close to this. I got this comment a couple times. I'm not sure if it was the same person on social media and Spotify, but it's Jonathan at Jonah_LW. He said, the fact that you cried during the pod when you talked about Bray speaks for itself. Thank you, and thanks to Cena and Styles for giving me my favorite wrestling moment and match of my life. I know there's a lot of people out there who feel that way about the match as a whole. To clarify, yes, I did get choked up recounting the moment on the instant analysis. And I'm a man who is unashamed of crying whenever I do. But I didn't cry on the podcast. I just wanted to clarify that there is a difference between the two. But yes, it was insanely emotional live. Recalling that on the show brought some of those emotions back. I was also still sick. I still am, by the way. I'm 92% better, but it's still in my voice and my head. And I don't know, when you get older, do colds last longer? I don't understand what's happening with me right now, but it's been over a week at this point, and I'm still just hanging on to the final remnants of the sickness. But regardless, the match was fantastic. It was emotional. And yeah, separately, Silver King is feeling better, 92% better. Joe Schmo at JDC_1996 wrote in. He said, it's been discussed that the AJ Cena match didn't have any psychology or story to it. Quote, just a bunch of moves, they say. But to me, it was obvious during the match itself, Styles versus Cena was a story of TNA versus WWE, AJ doing his TNA Rivals moves against Cena doing his Rivals moves from WWE. Not just that, by the way. AJ was just doing people he respected. Obviously, the super kick for Shawn Michaels and Samoa Joe had impact on both of their careers. So that's largely correct what you're saying, but I did want to point out it went beyond the fact that it was just their own rivals. Look, this had a match story. It did. It just didn't have an overriding storyline. We discussed the difference between those and really the necessity for having both in an ideal world all the time. The storyline is the reason you are fighting. This is where AEW fails so often by not creating reasons that compel you to watch the match and care about who wins. The match story is how the competition resonates with the viewer. Is it just two men or women doing moves and someone winning? Or is there something more behind it? Is someone selling a limb or being elevated as a contender through defeat? Is a young up-and-comer giving a veteran more than they can handle? Is a babyface overcoming adversity either due to being outnumbered or otherwise hindered? In this case, it was, we respect each other and where we come from so much that we're putting best against best and determining a winner. It was a love letter to an era of wrestling. And it was more soap opera, this match, than it was fight till you can't stand anymore competition. But that's precisely why we watch wrestling, because we want that variety. I graded this match 5 stars because it hit all my markers for what a 5-star match should deliver to a viewer. But it's an entirely different match, I said this Saturday, from Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada 1. That had storyline. It also had match story, but that was about the competition. Compare that to Omega Okada 4. That was also about the competition, but that was very much a love letter to their feud. A match filled with callbacks, which is why it's the single greatest wrestling match, bell to bell, I've ever seen, because I am someone who watched the 3 prior matches between them. So not only did I appreciate the athleticism and the quality of the match, but I appreciated the story that they told through the booking. Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, that was Avengers Endgame for professional wrestling. You saw AEW try to kind of replicate that with Hangman Page and Jon Moxley, but it paled in comparison because while it did have story and match story, it was nowhere near as deep and thorough, and you weren't as emotionally invested in that as you were with Reigns and Cody. All of these matches have their place. All of them deserve their flowers for, in some cases, completely different reasons. It doesn't necessarily make one the correct way to do professional wrestling and the other an incorrect way. But if someone is coming at you and saying that Cena and Styles didn't have any story to it, they're just lying. They didn't watch it. They sat back and zoned out and just saw, oh, that's a muscle buster. Oh, that's a sweet chin music. I guess they didn't do a muscle buster, but you get the point I'm making. That's a scorpion death drop. That's sweet chin music. Oh, that's skull crushing finale. Oh, that's Sister Abigail, right? And you're not like tying it together and understanding why they did what they did in the sequence. They did what they did. I thought Cena giving Styles respect before that match with the written out announce that he gave to Alicia Taylor, it seemed like that was planned. Styles may not have just known exactly what was going to be said, but that to me kind of kicked off the match story. It was, I respect you and I'm going to give you your flowers, but I'm still going to beat you. And in that situation, circumstantially, especially because Cena could not have made television appearances, it worked. It was a match story. There was psychology to the match. It's just vastly different from a lot of other matches that you see. And this whole thing, I want to wrap up on this because it's a thought I had during Raw on Monday night. It's something that AEW actually does really well. I know I just kind of gave them some backhanded, criticism here, but it's something AEW does well that WWE really does not do, and they should be doing with John Cena. So Cena only has however many televised dates here remaining. I think there's 4 left. 2 editions of Raw, Survivor Series War Games, I believe, and then the Saturday night's main event retirement on December 13th. So these 2 Raws on which he's going to appear are presumably going to set up his matches for those latter 2 shows. But just because you don't have Cena in the arena doesn't mean you can't be storytelling for his forthcoming matches. And really, this is something they should have been doing for the entire Styles feud and even in other circumstances where you don't get Cena every week. So what could they do? Well, they could pre-tape promos from him backstage. They could have him sit down and do interviews that are about the upcoming matches. They could have him remember back in the day on Raw is War, all the times where someone would be cutting a promo in the ring and then you would get someone live via satellite in their home, whether it was live, whether it was taped, it didn't matter. They sold it as if it was live. Why are we not getting John Cena on set, John Cena on a private jet, John Cena at his home, cutting promos and speaking to these upcoming matches and opponents that he has? It's a way to get him on TV, storytell, and not leave everything so vacant in this period of time where he just isn't able to be booked as often as WWE would like, probably Cena would like, and certainly we would like. And I don't understand the hesitancy to doing that or why they haven't creatively thought of that. He could have cut an entire promo, done an entire on-site interview about Styles. I understand the guy's on set, he's working. He can take 20 minutes to tape something for WWE. I mean, this guy used to go out of his way for days at a time to do Make-A-Wish stuff. This is building his retirement, right? I'm not trying to compare the quality and importance of doing Make-A-Wish. I'm just saying he would take out hours out of his days and days out of his life to do that. He's taking out this entire year to work for WWE and do a sayonara, send-off. Why are we not taking full advantage of this guy's willingness and taping some interviews and promos and airing them on the Titantron? Like I don't understand. So now maybe we'll get that over these final couple of months here, because there's basically exactly 2 months to the day that this is being taped remaining in Cena's WWE career. But it's shocking to me, completely shocking, that WWE hasn't used some of those storytelling devices. I mean, they did tweets to build the Styles match. Why not video promos? Why didn't Cena do a selfie promo? Hey, I don't book my own matches, but I want to fight Styles. I hear the fans are demanding it. This is the match I want. Paul Levesque, make it happen. I'm putting the pressure on you. Why was it a texted, tweet as opposed to a video? Why didn't he interrupt a WWE Raw broadcast and do that, right? It's 2025, man. There are so many technological advancements we have at our fingertips, so many ways to get content on television. And that's how you built the Styles match. And now he's only got 2 Raw appearances. both coming up, by the way, really relatively soon, to build matches that are way further out at Survivor Series, War Games, and Saturday Night's Main Event. I don't get it. And I hope WWE figures out something to make these final 2 months feel a bit more whole than they will if he's just making 4 total appearances, 2 on TV, and then 2 on the equivalent of premium live events. All right, let's move on from the first match of this WWE Crown Jewel second look. I told you I wasn't going to go long. I wasn't, but sometimes things just happen here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. The rest of these I'm going to run through relatively quick. Champion versus champion, Cody Rhodes, WWE champion against Seth Rollins, the World Heavyweight Champion for the Crown Jewel Championship. 4.5 stars and an A. I'm sticking with that grade. Rollins, by the way, clearly hurt his arm or shoulder on that coast-to-coast headbutt. He was favoring it immediately after landing and again after the match. I think I just forgot to mention that on the instant analysis. My fault if so. I feel like the rock bottom was a great spot from Rollins that was completely overlooked by commentary and even by fans. That was a direct shot to the Cody character for something that happened this year, and it went unmentioned by pretty much everyone. I maintain what I said about the Avalanche Crossroads. It was stupid to use that if what followed was going to be an immediate cover and kick out. You either save that for a match finish or don't have a cover right away or don't cover at all after it lands. It was ridiculous. Jason Jeter at J Jeter Leo, he said, I think low-key people aren't talking enough about Seth Rollins being the men's wrestler of the year at a minimum within WWE, but potentially throughout all of pro wrestling. He's legitimately deserving of consideration. I'll tell you something that may surprise you. I think John Cena is going to win men's wrestler of the year in the 2025 Getting Over Awards, aka the Meaties. I'm not sure he's the most deserving, but if I had to put odds on it, I believe he's the sneaky favorite. Storytelling, match quality, merchandise sales, attendance, importance. Who exceeded that? There's other people who have had probably a wider range of better overall wrestling matches. Will Ospreay's had an incredible in-ring year. Bandito has had a great in-ring year. Seth Rollins, as mentioned here, has been really damn good in ring, and he's carried this company, especially Raw, for the majority of 2025. He's been exceptional. He's a deserving nominee. I don't know that he wins. I don't know that some of those other guys win. When you start thinking about the Cena heel turn initially at Elimination Chamber, what he did Royal Rumble-wise, putting over Jey Uso, then okay, yeah, there was a period of time in the middle that was horrible, relatively considering. The Randy Orton match disappointed. Those segments with CM Punk were incredible. That match was really damn good. Then you have the incredible SummerSlam match with Cody Rhodes. Now the incredible AJ Styles match at Crown Jewel. And you still have 2 more to go. Are we really not going to talk about Cena as Wrestler of the Year? I think we're going to by year's end. I'm also going to tell you something I haven't even cleared, by the way, with Vintage Chris Vanini. We're going to do an entire career retrospective of John Cena in December prior to his final match at WWE Saturday Night's Main Event. We're not only going to cover his whole career, we're going to take a detailed breakdown look at his 2025 in totality, his final year as a professional wrestler. So that's all coming up here in 2 months on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Roman Reigns against Bronson Reed in an Australian street fight. I gave this 3.25 stars and a B. It's kind of crazy that the Vision went 2-0 over Rhodes and Reigns on this show, given what transpired on Raw this Monday, but we'll stick a pin in that. Nothing else to say about the match. I think I completely nailed the grade there. Rhea Ripley and Io Sky against the Kabuki Warriors, 4.25 stars and an A. This seems to be high comparative to what some others graded this match. I think it's right on. They did incredible tag team work, tons of great spots. It was smooth. They told the story. I was super entertained by it. I maintain that grade. Champion versus champion, Tiffany Stratton against Stephanie Vaquer. I gave this 4 stars, A-. I'm actually coming down 3.75 stars, B+. It was really good. They did solid work. It wasn't long enough. There wasn't really much of a match story to it. It just disappointed to expectation. And it was the second worst, quote unquote, match on the card. It doesn't deserve to be in the same tier as the other 3 matches, which are all A and A+. I forgot to credit, by the way, Brett Charles Malam at Brett_Malam for originally sending in the note about Stratton only wrestling short matches. Good shout on that. It allowed me to do the proper research. And of course, we came up with the information that we found. In terms of grades, I'll just reiterate, everyone was in the A- range coming in. We were all in the A range coming out. And at the end of the day, I do believe this was an A show, one of WWE's 2 or 3 best premium live events of 2025. It came at a great time too, because, things were kind of tenuous coming out of WrestlePalooza, and they have a few major shows coming up here. 2 Saturday Night's Main Event, Survivor Series, War Games, and obviously on the back end of that, they're going to be building into what for them will be a damn big Royal Rumble in the sand when they head over to Saudi Arabia to start 2026. So that wraps up your WWE Crown Jewel second look. Again, we will get full thoughts and explanations from Vintage Chris Vanini this Thursday on the show when it comes to WWE Crown Jewel and the big time storyline that transpired on Raw Monday night. We have so much show left. The main event, the good, the bad, and the ugly, both coming up.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
There are a couple items to discuss here off the top before we get into all of that. There were some WWE, NXT, and developmental releases that happened over the last few days. We will discuss all of those on Thursday's show. I wanted to shout out a fan in the SmackDown crowd who held a "Please Explain Travis Scott" sign. By the way, at the start of that show, SmackDown on Friday, the Perth crowd booed mentions of Saudi Arabia and chanted, "You sold out" to WWE. This is not going to go away the way that WWE hopes. I promise you. There's going to be constant issues through the build to the Royal Rumble, to the point I wouldn't be surprised if they stop mentioning the location either on television or in arena. And then when we get to a WrestleMania in 2027, it's going to be a full-on shit show the way crowds react to WrestleMania being over there. I promise you, it is not going to go well for this company. And we'll just see how they handle it and how it transpires. The latest WWE production error, obvious error, came at the start of SmackDown, where the ringside crew, I suppose, forgot to replace the main event lid on the announce table with one for SmackDown. How the hell do you miss that? Don't you do like a ringside check to make sure everything's the way it's supposed to be before the show begins? It's unbelievable how WWE has improved its production quality over the last 3 years, but consistency has gone down like an anchor. I don't understand how they make mistakes week after week when it comes to either stuff like this, camera work, introductions. It's crazy to me. On Friday, to be much more positive, we got the best SmackDown that we've had in months, and frankly, I believe one of the best of the entire year, which really isn't saying that much because this wouldn't crack a list of the top 10 editions of Monday Night Raw. But for SmackDown, I was thoroughly entertained for 2 hours with quality matches, returns, debuts, intriguing storytelling, stuff that's long been missing from the Blue brand, most of it done without changing much of what was already happening. It's almost like SmackDown got stuck in neutral for 6 months, and they finally figured out how to put it back into drive. Now, I got to watching Raw late, so I wanted to note to all of you, apparently, even on the international feed, it's going to skip the content that airs during the commercial breaks. So that just completely lost to the ether. Like, you'll never see it again unless WWE happens to post it on social media. As such, the Raw breakdown on this show is going to be a tad less complete than usual. If something happened during one of the breaks that was important, please hit us up and let us know. We'll mention it next week. Raw in totality was fantastic. Some great wrestling, interesting storytelling, a shocking moment that we're going to spend plenty of time talking about coming up here in a minute. But before I do, I wanted to shout out the crowd in Perth, Australia over the last 3 shows. It was exceptional. I know longtime listener Nims Azor at Doc Nims had a great time. He was messaging us constantly throughout the entire weekend, so shout out to him. I wrote on social media, it may not have been the singular best crowd of the year, quote unquote, but it was easily the most creative. Signs, chants, fan responses. I loved this effing crowd. By the time Raw ended, I believed it did have a chance to be considered the best crowd of the year, especially when you think about Perth in comparison to like Paris and some other locations. Perth didn't rely on constant chanting And it stood out as more of a typically great crowd that wasn't so worried about getting itself over as it was contributing to making the show better. Whereas Paris, and this is nothing against them, I'm just kind of saying, it felt like they were more knowing they had to live up to what Lyon did and they needed to get themselves over and create, they were actively attempting to create an atmosphere, whereas Perth was responding to the content that WWE was giving them. I wasn't thrilled, by the way, with the antics of some fans on the Crown Jewel post show. I chalk that up to it being a late night, a lot of beer, the Aussies just taking the piss. Otherwise, on TV, for SmackDown, Crown Jewel itself, and Raw, they were freaking awesome. So, shout out to Perth, Australia, and you know what? We acknowledge you.
Acknowledge.
Acknowledge. Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
All right, we have just spent the better part of a half hour looking back at WWE Crown Jewel and really the experience of the company in Australia. It is now time to look forward by breaking down everything that happened across Raw and SmackDown and discussing what it means for WWE through the end of 2025. And we're going to kick that off, as we always do here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, by sliding into the main event.
This is the main event.
So the Vision appropriately opened Raw, getting loud "Seth is a wanker" chants. So Seth Rollins kicked off his standard introduction with "In case you wankers don't know," which got a really big pop. He explained how this was the Vision realized before putting over Paul Heyman, saying he was blessed to be with the GOAT. They hugged each other, so fans chanted "kiss." So Rollins actually kissed him on his bald ass head. Then they got Braun Breaker to do his dog-like kind of tick thing, chanting "kiss" again, which was hysterical, as Rollins put him over as the undisputed future. Lastly, Rollins put over Bronson Reed, who got loud cheers and soccer-style chants for destroying Roman Reigns using his knowledge, calling him the new tribal chief, with Reed even raising a finger. They could have done "acknowledge me" here, by the way, and it would have worked. Rollins said he's separate from the other all-time legends because he didn't need anyone's help. Reigns needed the Shield and the Bloodline. Cody Rhodes needed Seth himself to beat Roman, whereas he didn't need the Vision. He's chosen them. And he even went out and beat Cody with one good arm. Remember that. Obviously, delusional heel stuff, as most of his examples included situations where he actually got help. He just didn't mention it. Rollins was wearing the Crown Jewel Championship here. He got pyro after his closing salvo, which I'm glad was not interrupted. This was the entire point of the win over Rhodes being necessary. It's what we've been talking about for weeks now. You had to have Rollins be able to come out here and point out and crow about this stuff and be relatively undisputed in his words, establishing him as a dominant heel and this group as a dominant faction. It wasn't the most exciting opening segment, but it was certainly strong. And the Perth crowd did a great job kind of filling in some gaps with that unintentional comedy. What stuck out to me was Rollins' line on Reed, because it got me thinking back to our conversation last week about wishing WWE went deeper on the Samoans being exiled to Australia, forming their own tribe, that whole 9 yards. If they had included Reed's motivation for joining Rollins, being that he specifically wanted revenge against Reigns and the Anawahi clan, what Seth said here about giving him the knowledge and tools to take down Roman, that would have hit even harder. Alas, strong opener overall. The heels got the placement they deserved, and Rollins was platformed the way he needed to be coming out of Crown Jewel, because in this moment still, I'm saying to myself, this was the entire point of booking him that way. LA Knight backstage had a fun interaction with Jackie Redmond before stating his readiness to be 3-0 against Rollins, this time emerging as World Heavyweight Champion. CM Punk interrupted, saying Knight got lucky stealing one last week, but he wouldn't be pinning him. The Usos commiserated backstage, with Jimmy happy enough to represent, I guess, his family against Reed in a match on the show, but he was still angry about how Reigns treated them at Crown Jewel. Jay reiterated that Roman only looks out for himself, so he thought maybe they should do the same. His point, he can't help Jimmy in his match because he's got to focus on his World Heavyweight Championship, #1 contendership. Jimmy took exception to that, but he was steadfast, ready to handle his own business. The Night Punk stuff here was largely whatever, just kind of basic in-show build. I enjoyed the way the Usos addressed the Reigns situation, and how that's even playing into their own issues. Though really, Jimmy should not have been that upset that Jay said what he did when he's the one who saw Roman affecting Jay's mentality in the first place. He should be glad that Jay has saw the light and wisened up and realized he can't count on Roman. The issue is that Jay took the wrong lesson for it. It's that we need to look out for ourselves individually, and I don't want to have my brother's back and vice versa. So it was okay that he had that issue, but Jimmy's facial expression took issue with the initial comment from Jay. And that's why I found that to be just a little odd. So he had Jimmy against Bronson Reed. Jimmy hit what I guess they're calling Uso in the wind. Then he failed to lift Bronson, selling injured ribs. Reed immediately took advantage with 2 sentons right to the rib area, and then Tsunami, of course, to the same area for the clean win, which is exactly what it should have been, considering this dude just beat Reigns 48 hours earlier and was put over massively in the opening segment by Rollins. The question I had is why they made such a deal about Jay not being out there to help him when the heels didn't even cheat and Breakker wasn't even ringside. Well, that was answered after the bell because Breakker celebrated with Reed only to double back for a blindside spear and a rope run spear when Breakker geared up for an around the ring spear. Jay finally entered only to get squashed in the corner, but he was relatively unscathed outside of that one move. He was angry, though, for having to come out there and help, but it's like it was Jimmy's fault. Jimmy didn't put himself in a situation where Jay needed to help him. It was the right booking, though, a clear setup for Jay to not win the number 1 contendership, which, of course, we expected anyway. Rollins and Heyman were all smiles backstage because everything has been going according to plan. Rollins said he sensed something big on the horizon in the next 6, 12, 18 months because it's only going to get better for them from now on. Then he praised the Braun Brawns for becoming so successful, saying it was the most incredible weekend of his professional life. He said it was up there with the birth of his child, his marriage to Becky Lynch, among his proudest moments. Rollins said, "This is rarefied air on the mountaintop, and they're so close to taking the next step. He's on cloud 9. There's no one that can knock him off the top." So that basically gave away for me who was going to win the number 1 contendership, the lone man who can knock him off the top. While I liked seeing content, confident Seth in this spot, what bothered me about the booking here was the obvious topic that was not covered. Breakker and Reed going after the tag team titles. How can this be the top if Rollins is the only one holding gold? Why, in this dead-ass division, with these guys having beaten the Usos, are neither Rollins, Heyman, nor the Braun Brawns themselves focused on winning titles? For me, it was a massive, massive logic gap. If the division was running hot on its own, okay, I can suspend disbelief where they don't see themselves as a tag team and therefore they're not getting involved with that. But nothing is happening. Why the hell would you not put gold on these guys' shoulders? What's stopping you? The War Raiders, the New Day, they can't even get on TV. So that was my mindset coming out of this segment. That brings us to the number 1 contendership, CM Punk against LA Knight and Jey Uso in a triple threat. This main evented Raw. Jay did the Yeet remix, but when the crowd screamed Cult of Personality after Punk's music cut off, Punk actually was able to mock Jay by yeeting, saying basically, "Hear how loud they are for my song." There was an incredible shot by production of a girl in the crowd holding a sign that said 19 years to see CM Punk while crying because he just entered the arena. She was so emotional. I found myself really hoping WWE brought her backstage after the show, gave her something, and I can confirm she did get to meet Punk on Monday, which was super cool. Punk hit the Savage Elbow on Knight early, but Go to Sleep got countered into an inverted DDT. Jay took a rough bump on a regular DDT, but appeared to be okay, as Knight did a double jump up elbow drop. After Knight landed a superplex on Punk, Jay immediately flew in with an Uso splash false finish. Jay avoided GTS, with Punk getting thrown into Knight for a BFT and a broken fall. Jay then threw Knight into the steel steps, but ate a double knee counter to an Uso splash, taking GTS for the 1-2-3, with Punk becoming the new number 1 contender. Punk actually grabbed Jay's grills, which popped out of his mouth, in an unintentional but rather hilarious bonus moment at the bell. The Vision entered afterward, with Breakker sprinting down the ramp and spearing the hell out of Jay. Then he stared down Punk, only to hit a runaround lift-off spear on Knight. Next was a rope run spear on Punk, with Reed hitting a tsunami chaser before Rollins screamed over his dead body demanding he be thrown out of the ring as they all celebrated together. Let's pause here. Quality match as the show's main event, normal post-match heel attack, nothing more than a relatively typical WWE triple threat with Punk being the anticipated but rather boring winner. When I figured Knight would be the one getting the dub, holding off the Punk feud for longer and creating a quality Saturday night's main event rematch, which calls back to Rollins faking his knee injury in their prior meeting. It would have been the perfect booking in that way. So I was at first real surprised by that. And then on the back end, it's absolutely crazy to me that Rollins and Punk have fought 3 real times, not counting the Money in the Bank cash-in. And these matches have occurred on 2 episodes of Raw and now presumably Saturday night's main event. The top level men's feud on Raw. And they have not fought one-on-one at any premium live event, let alone something that should be expected for the high level of their feud, like WrestleMania or SummerSlam. I know they did the triple threat, WrestleMania Night 1, but it's Rollins Punk. That's the story that WWE has been telling now for the better part of 2 years. And these guys have not fought one-on-one at a premium live event and may still not through the end of 2025. That to me is absolutely crazy. So after this, and Rollins is kind of screaming at Punk, it looks like Raw is going off the air. The bottom third graphic shows up when suddenly Breaker, completely out of nowhere, spears the hell out of Rollins, took the man's soul out of his effing body, to the utter shock of Heyman, and I would say the relative surprise of Reed as well. Then he gets right in Reed's face, telling him to make a choice. So Reed considers it for a moment, drags Rollins into the corner for a single tsunami, the crowd absolutely erupting at both the initial turn from Breaker and Reed's devastation. Breaker then literally lifts Heyman up by his lapel and appears to give him the same choice. As Breaker picked up the WWE Championship, Heyman made his decision. He raised their arms in the air as Raw went off. Just an absolutely shocking development. And frankly, I'm kind of dumbfounded by the timing of it because we always knew eventually this would happen, just not here and not now. It certainly makes sense why they did the earlier backstage segment that I criticized for lacking direction. And it's also why Rollins earlier said he didn't need them to be successful. He was only doing it out of his desire to lead and establish the future. That said, he put both of them over massively and crowed about them and how Breaker was the second coming and how Reed was dominant in the Tribal Chief. So, I mean, he said he didn't need them, but he also put them both over. And he said this was like the biggest moment of his wrestling career, third only in his life to having a baby and marrying his wife. So, you know, he was pretty complimentary, I guess is what I'm trying to say, of both of them. So because of those reasons, it was logical on the show. We got individual story beats building up to this turn. But the Vision has only been together for like 6 months, a little bit less, 5. They only got their name like 3-ish months ago. Becky Lynch only joined them like 2 months ago. Rollins, just 48 hours earlier, was booked to beat Cody, establishing him in this specific role and establishing the group as a whole, which also extended with Reed going over Reigns. If the storyline was going to be them splitting apart, wouldn't you have had Rollins lose that match because of all the teases they gave going in? What's going to happen, Paul? If I lose, well, Breaker and Reed aren't going to believe in you, and you're going to probably lose me as well because I'll have made the wrong decision. So why would you choose this show in this moment to break it all apart, especially when you have War Games coming up? They could have lost in War Games and then turned on him because he failed as a leader. I can't make sense of it, which tells me there's got to be something else at play here, and we'll come back to that in a moment. In terms of what we got on the show, all of it made for an excellent shock value storyline and a tremendous cliffhanger, by the way, to end Raw. The turn makes sense. Rollins is not really the future, he's the present, whereas Breaker at age 27 is very much the future. Reed is 37, so he's not, but he is a fresh character and the audience technically doesn't know how old he is. Reed choosing Breaker over Rollins makes sense, because he was always there as a mercenary and he sensed the shifting power dynamic. Plus, he just beat Reigns. If there was ever a time to distance himself from Rollins saying, I don't need you anymore, it's now, which is why I wish they played into their relationship further, as I mentioned earlier. Heyman choosing Breakker similarly plays. They have a relationship dating back 2 years when he managed Braun for that one NXT match, even though he was still the advocate for Roman Reigns. Plus, Breakker is very much the next big thing in Heyman's eyes. So the development, it's completely sensible in the context of the individuals and the overall story. It's just the timing of it all that feels illogical in reality, given Saturday's booking with Rollins becoming the visionary that he said he was by beating Cody. Now, I saw people saying WWE was smart to do this because the vision wasn't working as constructed. Personally, you guys know I have never believed that. And I don't believe for 1 second that this is why WWE ran this breakup. I've enjoyed it since the beginning. The fans in attendance clearly do as well. They're singing Rollins' theme. They're barking for Breakker. They're going crazy when Reed hits the tsunami. Now, yeah, look, Heyman may not have been the perfect fit. We saw the vision shine when he went away for a month. But it was rolling smooth when he came back, and it never could have started without him. The addition of Lynch recently was super interesting. It was starting to elevate them to another level where you not only have Heyman there as the mastermind, but Rollins as the visionary, and Lynch almost as the motivator for the entire crew. They were just starting to reach for that, and I was really looking forward to seeing how that transpired. And now all of a sudden, it's over. In terms of the why now, specifically, I cannot imagine the turn was planned for this edition of Raw. Perhaps in 6 weeks or 2 to 3 months, not this Raw in Australia. The only explanation I can conjure is that Rollins legitimately hurt his shoulder in the Crown Jewel match, and WWE needed to fast forward their booking because of it. Now, he was seen walking around Perth in a sling. And I know people are going to say, well, he was also seen in a knee brace, and that was just to screw over CM Punk. Could WWE do that again? Yes. Would it be super believable with Breakker and Reed spearing and tsunamiing him, and it delays their match, and then they finally fight, and Rollins is fine, and those guys help him? Yes. That would be very like Vince Russo booking. And I don't think WWE wants to go into that twice. Now, we're going to know a lot more in 2 days because Rollins is advertised for the WWE Super Show in Melbourne before they leave Australia. At that point, if he wrestles, well, we'll know how okay he is or how not okay he is. We'll also know, once it's determined whether the Rollins-Punk match goes on as scheduled at Saturday night's main event, which is the next show. You'll realize commentary never said when it would take place. If the match does happen on that show, then I presume he's fine and I'm wrong about this, unless the title changes. If the title changes or that match gets delayed, similar to what happened when Rollins hurt his knee months before WrestleMania 40, then that's absolutely what went down. He got injured and plans changed. Because if you do delay that match, then what you've done here is create a reason to write Rollins off and push the title defense until rehabilitation is complete, 30, 90 days, whatever the case might be. If he does drop the title, it means he's well enough to do one more match, but obviously is going to need surgery on the back end. So you wanted to do the split now as opposed to after the fact. Though again, it probably would have made more sense to me for Rollins to drop the title and then the Vision to attack him because they can no longer believe in him as their leader. So really, if Rollins is not injured to the point where the next match is delayed, any other result for me says that they probably should have done this later. Because why couldn't Rollins have remained champion, said he was injured, and then the Vision realized while he was out that they don't need him. So when he comes back, they turn on him, and then you're in the exact same spot. If you were going to book an injury angle where Rollins would need to relinquish the title, if he was hurt that bad, you would have needed to give him much more than one spear and one tsunami, which is why I don't believe relinquishing the title here is at play. But I do believe this injury, one way or another, factored into a change of creative plans that led to this happening on this particular Raw in Australia. Otherwise, I really struggle to put together the logic of doing this turn in this spot after you put Rollins over Rhodes to not only establish him, but establish the vision. It's the exact wrong time to do something like that if there is not another factor at play. Now, look, the consequences of this injury can be far-reaching. Most notably, we may not get resolution to Rollins' reigns, which we expected this WrestleMania season. It may also complicate whatever plans existed with Punk. And we know that his booking, has been up and down and around because of injury and because of other factors that have thrown things off. Now, obviously, if Rollins was injured to the point that he needs surgery immediately, then of course you had to do this, and it by far makes the most sense to just turn those guys against him, reestablish Braun Breaker, let's say, as the new leader of the Vision, fill the faction out, and you move on from there. But if that is the case, and he needs surgery, let's say this week, to repair a torn rotator cuff, right? I'm just kind of throwing some BS out there right now. But if that is what is necessary, then why was it one spear and one tsunami? Why are you not absolutely wiping this guy out so you can write him off television? 2 spears, 4 tsunamis. I mean, Bronson Reed gave him, 6 previously, and they're okay with 1 spear and 1 tsunami here. So if the attack was to completely write him off television, which is the most extreme of any of the possibilities that we're discussing here, I would go so far as to say that it was not significant enough. But of course, we're not going to know that until we find out what is actually going on, whether this is injury related, which it seems almost certainly to be, and also, if so, what level of injury Rollins has suffered and how long he might be out of action if surgery is required. Because certainly, if this is a 2 or 3 month situation where you're going in, doing a little cleanup, and then you're going to go rehab it, you probably wouldn't go to this extent and fast forward a storyline that you had planned for at least 2 months, but if not 3, 6, maybe even 9 months in the future. If it's something where this guy is now going to be out of action for 9 to 10 months, then what choice do you really have? You pretty much have to pull the trigger, go with this, and then circle back on the other side and figure out, how do we then book this guy when he returns? Is he a babyface who has, recognized the error of his ways, or is he still a heel who just wants revenge on these guys first before he does whatever the case will be next? But if this is a serious injury and Rollins is out of action for an extended period of time, then this dude has absolutely no luck when it comes to world championship reigns. It seems every single time he's in the middle of one and really leveling something up or leveling himself up, and things are just rolling super hot every single time, this dude gets injured one way or another. And for this occasion, as I just mentioned, when it looked like this was all a long-term story building, not only to a huge Survivor Series War Games match, but also potentially, maybe likely, the Reigns-Rollins match at WrestleMania that we have badly desired. Main event, night 2, the whole shebang, those 2 guys in prime position. And for that to now possibly be over, if a serious shoulder type injury requires surgery, because those generally are not 6-month situations, they're 8, 9, 10 months, a year sometimes, then man, I just don't know what could be worse for Rollins in a situation like this. What I'm extremely curious about going into Raw next week is what the hell Breaker and Reed actually do now. Are they going to be built as a dominant tag team? If not, and Breaker is the leader, he's the main eventer, is Reed okay just going after a mid-card title or being his muscle? That doesn't fit. It doesn't really make sense. It feels to me like they need to expand whatever they are and add more members. But Heyman managing a dominant team like, let's say, the Steiner brothers, that would work amazingly well until Breaker obviously turns on Reed in the future, if you want to do it that way. Maybe give them a massive tag team title run all the way to WrestleMania, proving they combined together are the future, Maybe you even change their name from the Vision to the Future. And then you flip the script on the Raw after WrestleMania. And that's where Breakker, pun not intended, breaks off and begins doing his own thing. But it's going to be the booking of these two guys, Breakker and Reed, going forward, that is super important to making this work. And again, it's going to be the booking of Rollins and what the reality is of his situation that will allow us to determine whether doing the turn at this juncture was the right decision for WWE. Because right now, we just don't have enough information to give a definitive answer one way or another. Similarly, by the way, what do you do with Rollins now? How is he the leader of the Vision with no followers? Does he reform the faction, bringing in new members like in Austin Theory, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, Oba Femi? Does Becky maybe operate as a co-leader? They bring some women into this group as well. All of a sudden, you have a real diverse, interesting Vision that is able to almost operate, you can't really say from a babyface side. Maybe they stay heels and Breakker and Reed are built into faces somehow. Or do you just have Rollins and Lynch operate in a two-man power trip where they're just dominant and they help each other, and that's really all that matters? So myriad questions coming out of the main event of Raw. It was exciting. It was surprising. It was shocking. But there are way more questions than answers right now. And that's both positive for WWE when it comes to the cliffhanger, getting people to watch Raw next week. But it also could be negative depending what the far-reaching implications are of doing this turn at this time, immediately after Crown Jewel, basically throwing away the importance, it seems as of now, of Rollins beating Cody in that spot, getting the monkey off his back, going to 1-3 in their feud. And then, of course, we don't know about Rollins' injury and what that means going forward. So just a lot of questions here. Usually when we leave the main event, we give you some definitive answers. We loved this. We hated this. This is what we expect going forward. I got to leave you all on a getting over cliffhanger because that's the way WWE left us after Raw on Monday night. So that is the main storyline from WWE television this week, as unexpected as it may have been. But I promise you, we have an absolute ton still to discuss here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. And we're going to do that right now in the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hey, yo. Survey says one more for the good guy.
Say hello to the back.
Don't sing it. Bring it.
Since we mentioned Cody, let's start off with Cody because he came across Jacob Fatu backstage, with Jacob expressing nothing but love, but saying he would be coming after the WWE title following Crown Jewel. Rose's response? Good. Nick Aldis then came through, telling Fatu he was proud seeing him level up in real time and he should stop by the office. Drew McIntyre immediately attacked from behind, driving Fatu into a cement wall, tossing his ass into a pile of road cases. He was going to ram him with a metal food server, but a bunch of agents got between them. Aldis later told McIntyre he had already decided they would fight next week. Fatu similarly attacked Drew when they were talking, with the men getting pulled apart again, screaming at each other. Look, given their size and intensity,
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
I just kind of feel like there should have already been a match one stipulation off the jump. Like, these guys are kicking the shit out of each other backstage, and you're going to put them in a match with rules? You know, that doesn't really fit for me, but it was a solid enough build, capitalizing on the heat they generated a couple of weeks ago. This does get a good, and now I kind of go into this match wondering, you know, what's happening with Cody? Because I thought in the Rollins match, they were going to injure him a little bit. That would allow McIntyre to take the title coming up, maybe at Saturday night's main event, and then kind of build Cody into chasing later in the year against, you know, someone else. But now I just don't know who they're going to book to win McIntyre Fatu, nor do I know if it's going to be clean and what it means for them going forward. Is it going to be a one-match deal, or are they going to have like an extended feud? Who's going to step up to Cody? Because that roster is kind of barren right now. Maybe they move someone over from Raw. It's going to be curious to see what happens on SmackDown this Friday. Kairi Sane was broken up backstage when Asuka came through, blaming her for losing at Crown Jewel, leading to Io Sky and Rhea Ripley still respecting each other. Kairi said she could fix it by talking to Io, but Asuka said she needed to fix the dishonor she caused by destroying Rhea and reminding everyone that she, Asuka, is in charge. Sane grabbed Asuka's arm, showing a massive bump on her head, saying it was punishment that she took for trying to save Asuka in the match. So Asuka just rears back, slaps her across the face.
What is the 5 fingers say to the face? What? Slap!
And that shit got a massive response that was so loud, we couldn't even hear what they were saying afterward. Asuka then caressed her face in full gaslighting mode. I think she was also wearing a Kyrie shirt. Even though this match was immediately afterward, I gotta give this a good on its own. What an effing segment. I mean, we knew Asuka is like an asshole overall. She was a cold ass bitch here. In a day when everyone tries to be the cool heel that you cheer even though they're bad, Asuka is an in-your-face piece of shit. They'd use a different word in England and Australia that I won't say here, and the show is all that better because of it. This did so much for both of their character alignments, their motivations, and Kyrie has easily been the best actress among all 4 of the women to this point. I freaking love this feud. It's easily the best Asuka and Kyrie have ever been booked in their main roster careers. So we had Ripley against Sane. Kyrie got her old theme back, which was an utter shock because her new theme was good. I mean, it wasn't as good, but it was good. Also, the old theme is a little bit more babyface than the new one, so maybe they should have saved that for if and when she turns on Asuka. But okay, whatever. It's better. It's positive. Asuka distracted early, leading to Io brawling with her ringside. Kyrie dominated offensively through the break, but Rhea caught her back fist, leading to a headbutt before Sane escaped Riptide, hit a standing insane elbow to Ripley standing ringside. Rhea also sold her ass off on a Kyrie stunner, popping up like The Rock. Ripley dodged a second standing insane elbow before catching her spear cold with her stomach, turning it into a razor's edge. And it was here I realized, if Kyrie can't spear through Rhea, well, maybe she can't take down Brock Lesnar after all. Sane caught her with a hanging double stomp, 2 spinning back fists, and a running forearm. Rhea caught her cold off the ropes, tossing her up, down, and around until she landed a facebuster, ultimately adding her headbutt, Riptide, and a simply incredible cover.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
For the win. Asuka drove Io into the ring post after the bell, getting booted off the ring apron by Rhea, who cleared the announce table for Riptide, only to get beaten by Kyrie with a kendo stick. That allowed Asuka to DDT Ripley on the table and stand tall. What stood out to me about this match, and continues to stand out to me about this storyline, is that Kyrie is almost being booked as the main character. It's certainly Io, but Kyrie is the one out of the 4 who will actually undergo a transformation from this feud. She's also the only one who has seen her screen time and prominence increase the most. When you consider that she's working with 3 future Hall of Famers, and yeah, we can say that about Ripley already. I just want to make sure that Sane's role in all of this is not lost. The booking here was perfect. Long match that featured the Australian star. Let Kyrie dominate for a while. That way Rhea worked from under. You couldn't give Sane the win, but she was allowed to look strong here, just like she did, by the way, beating Sky last week. But obviously the heels stand tall at the end because you need to continue the story. So far, this has been knocked out of the park 1 week after the next. All 4 of them are shining. The women's division on Raw is stronger than ever. An obvious good. 4 stars, A- for the match. And I'll tell you what, I almost went a little higher. I'm starting to wonder, by the way, if Asuka is going to be the one to beat Stephanie Vaquer for the Women's World Championship. Think about this, okay? Absolutely zero shame in dropping the title to a legend who's a heel and will probably cheat. That would put it back around the other main eventers for WrestleMania season. Though certainly Stephanie could keep it until April. I'm not sure she needs a long reign when I cannot imagine that was the original plan, of course, due to Naomi. This Asuka character is a main event level heel. It should be champion at some point. Hell, maybe they're gearing up for Kyrie to win the Intercontinental title too. I'm just totally into both of them and the overall story. It kicks major ass. By the way, Becky Lynch versus Maxine Dupree for the Intercontinental title was announced for next week in Sacramento. Maxine is from Sacramento, but billed from Phoenix, so I'm guessing they're going to adjust that. While a title change would be shocking, if it includes an AJ Lee return to cost Becky, I can actually see it happening. AJ doesn't need the title. Becky has taken it pretty damn far. Maxine could drop it in short order. I wouldn't change it. Let me be clear if I had the book, because the women's division is running perfectly right now. Another title being like fully up for grabs isn't needed on Raw, but I could see them pulling the trigger, resetting the scene, having others contest it. It's just Lynch brought it to such a level of prominence that giving it to then Dupree would knock it down like 3 or 4 different pegs, when really the goal should be maintaining that level of prominence that started with Lyra Valkyria doing a good job, and Lynch, of course, taking it to the next level. We had Bayley and Lyra against the Judgment Day. The faces commiserated backstage with Lyra telling Bayley this was a one-time team-up because they're regularly not on the same page, largely due to Bayley's inconsistencies. Bayley was happy-go-lucky, laughing at the concept of only teaming once. She appropriately got Hey Bayley chants at the bell. Raquel Rodriguez did a really cool fall-away slam of the faces into one another ringside. Roxanne Perez landed the Satomura cartwheel knee drop. She still needs to perfect that. I love that she does it, but it's not perfect. She also did the double springboard moonsault. Bayley was not doing well in this match, so Lyra smacked her across the face, brought the craziness out of her. Bayley went wild, immediately hitting a double tope suicida, clotheslining Raquel over the barricade, dropping an elbow on Roxy, and then hitting Rose Plant for a flurry of a win. Bayley, who was now the role model, loved it, hugged Valkyria, celebrating after the bell. This was good, but we now need to move away from these 4 wrestling in any combination. Bayley and Lyra should be on a tag team title track, at least until, they fail and presumably feud. But they need to be fighting other teams on the Raw roster and the SmackDown roster, even if they have to be made up and thrown together. Another reason they need to move away from Judgment Day is those ladies have taken enough L's in this feud. They need to get some wins on their own. It's okay to be fodder for a while. You just can't permanently be fodder. So that was my mindset coming out of this segment. Vaquer hit the stage wearing the Crown Jewel Championship and her ring. I mentioned this before with Rollins. I forgot to explain why it was weird. The ring is supposed to be the representation of the actual belt, which was established last year as being only for display purposes because it's, enormous and gaudy. So they're supposed to be wearing the ring, but they're not supposed to also be carrying the title. So hopefully after Raw, those go away. Anyway, Vaquer said exactly what I did on the instant analysis. She was proud of being the first woman in WWE history to win 4 titles in 1 year. Judgment Day then confronted, saying that she never should have been champion. Roxy reminded that she should have been the number 1 contender because she was the last one to beat Io. Vaquer told her to stop crying and do something about it, which actually got a great reaction from the crowd. Perez said she would on her own time. So Vaquer delivered a cold-ass line saying, "I'll be waiting in my inferno when you're ready."
That's cool.
Well, look, certainly they're not going to get back to their winning ways against Stephanie, but this is a nice usage of Judgment Day, just given the strength of the Raw women's division, allows them to move into the main event title picture without anything else being lost. It gives Vaquer legitimate contenders while the rest of the women's division is busy in their own storylines. I saw people have issues with Roxy challenging here after losing a match 10 minutes earlier. Number 1, she's a heel. Number 2, she explained why. She was the last person to beat Io and never got the title match she deserved. Sometimes I feel like people don't really listen to their TVs when they watch Raw. Now, I will say, given this was happening, they probably should have pinned Rodriguez in this match. However, I have a feeling this is going to be a one challenger after another scenario where she beats Perez first and then she beats Rodriguez, so it probably didn't matter who took the fall. The energy here wasn't the strongest, but I really like the booking concept and what they're doing and how they're featuring these women, by the way, in the title picture with Vaquer. This was good. United States Open Challenge over on SmackDown. Sami Zayn against Shinsuke Nakamura. While Nakamura had been stalking Zayn backstage over recent weeks, this was nevertheless a huge surprise given Shinsuke entered to his original music and received a full serenade from the Perth crowd, including After the Bell, which was followed by Welcome Back and Nakamura chants. Obviously, this popped Silver King thinking back to NXT TakeOver Dallas in 2016. Nakamura avoided Blue Thunder Bomb, landing a spinning heel kick. Zayn countered Kinshasa with a pickup Michinoku driver. Nakamura dodged a Luva kick after an exploder suplex, hitting a flying Kinshasa from the second rope, only for a delayed cover to result in a false finish. Shin basically landed a short-range Kinshasa to the back of Sami's head, but it sent him flying out of the ring. Zayn caught him ringside with an exploder suplex and haluva kick into the barricade, but as they both re-entered, Zayn got caught with a full Kinshasa for a 2.9 rope break that included fantastic camera work to hide the rope from view before his foot actually touched it. I also want to shout out Wade Barrett for dissing the referee, calling her fast count car, referring back to what she did to Becky Lynch last week. I just loved it. It was great in the time. The crowd actually booed on the rope break. They wanted Nakamura to win the title. Shin landed Scorpio Rising, shout out Meiko Satomura, only to get pulled out of the ring by a man in face paint. It was Tama Tonga, who got a huge pop upon his reveal from the hoodie. That was obviously a disqualification. He slowly made his way onto the ring apron, only for Tala Tonga, Tonga Loa, and JC Mateo to follow suit for a 4-way beatdown. Nakamura tried but failed to save as Zayn ate Tour of the Islands, and Nakamura basically took Hidden Blade. Solo Sikoa re-entered, the only one not in face paint, looking like the least intimidating person ever, considering he had 4 island guys standing around him, appearing to be absolute maniacs based on the booking on their face paint. So look, man, a lot happened here. Okay, first, we got classic Shin. Though he had new gear that was no longer single color, it was his first match since June. He didn't look like he lost a step. In fact, I would argue he moved better and looked trimmer than not only this spring, but the last few years. It was tremendous bell to bell. Everything you could want from these two in an open challenge situation. It did feel like Shin was given a bit too much with 3 Kinshasas. Sammy only retained the title out of pure luck, especially because he was about to eat a 4th right before the DQ. I probably would have booked the match a little bit closer to 60-40 toward Shin, as opposed to like 75-25, which is how it felt as a viewer. But if the goal was to truly reestablish Nakamura, because he's going to be a regular featured player and an actual mid-card contender again, then okay, hats off, mission accomplished. Hearing Nakamura get cheers and chants and Zayn get booed because fans wanted Shin to win, that was music to my ears. Even the Tama Tonga return, while it sucked to interrupt the match, was awesome. He looked incredible wearing the Gorillas of Destiny face paint that he donned in New Japan with Tonga Loa. Having everyone else in the face paint kind of diminished it a little bit. At first, I was kind of pumped up. I was like, wait, Tama's returning in the paint? He's getting a singles run. He's going to go after the U.S. title. This is sick. It really would have set him apart. He looked huge also, by the way. Like he really trained while he was injured. But even though it's not just him, I will say it's a cool aesthetic for the group that at least made them more visually interesting. Complicating matters, though, is the still awful faction name that in no way fits to the face paint aesthetic and the leader Sikoa appearing diminutive, plain, and visually uninteresting in the presence of these other guys in face paint. So this does get an overall good. I'm going to go 4 stars A- for the match. It was sailing on its way to an A. But to me, this was 90% successful with 10% further refinement that, if it was thought through better, probably would have put this over the top and made it something crazy successful. And again, I'm kind of depressed because I thought we were getting Tama Tonga for 10, 15 seconds in a singles role. And that with Sammy at pure babyface as champion would have been damn interesting. 2 things I want to make sure I don't get lost before we wrap up this topic. First, Nakamura is clearly back as a babyface given his entrance, the attack, the way he got Sammy's back. It's going to be curious to see how they're paired, whether they get anyone else's help with MFT. Second, the whole fallen samurai gimmick with Nakamura, I do not look back on that as a failure. It did not resonate with the crowd, and it was ultimately unsuccessful. But it was a solid idea that was presented well. It had a quality entrance, a great theme music remix, tremendous look for the guy. It's too bad it didn't work, but it's clear that babyface Nakamura has legs, and now WWE actually needs to roll with it. The tag team championships were on the line, the Wyatt Six defending against the Street Profits. The Profits reverted back to their original music again. This is the second time they've tried and failed to change their entrance, only to revert. This is 3 songs that were changed, by the way, in 1 week. The Six entrance was again botched in terms of like the music ended too early and it didn't really have the impact of ending on that like key where all of a sudden it like lands hard with you and you just go, oh, wow, the Six are here. I don't know why they keep botching that. The Profits hit a double Doomsday Blockbuster, their finisher, with a delayed cover leading to a Nikki Cross assisted rope break. So B-Fab threw into the steel steps. Cross jumped on her off the steel steps, and the Profits hit Eric Rowan with a pair of tope con heroes. Dexter Loomis pulled Joe Gacy by the arms out of harm's way to avoid Montez Ford's frog splash, with the champions landing the Plague, their finisher, to retain the title. The match was chaotic and pretty fun for what we got, but man, this shit was the shortest thing on the entire show. I thought it lasted 4 minutes. It technically lasted 6:30. But like, what are we doing? Why are you putting a tag team title match that you built for a couple weeks on the show and running it that short with that kind of finish? The Profits, arguably the best team in the company that actually gets regular TV time, should not be thwarted that quick regardless of the storyline reason, especially for a match that you built to, like I just said. And by going back to their old theme, does that mean they're staying together and not splitting? What is happening with this? So while I actually liked the action and I thought the finish was a smart way to excuse the loss, overall, for the booking of this part, I just got to say bad, man. Like, what are we doing with all of this?
That is one big pile of shit.
Now, more happened after the bell. As the Six celebrated, Bo Dallas, by the way, nowhere to be found this whole segment. Like he just didn't make the trip over to Australia, I guess. MFT appeared on the ring apron in the dark with the lights flashing. This legitimately got loud, holy shit chants. And fair enough, because the visual was incredible. This crazy Wyatt Six group, these 4 dudes in face paint. I mean, understandably, like it was cool in the moment. They stood off 4-on-4 again, no Uncle Howdy. Then Solo Sikoa stood in the middle, and Cross actually went chest to chest with him, which kind of popped me. It was funny. Solo directed his guys to leave, sounding like he said something along the lines of, "Tell Uncle Howdy we're looking for him." Cross stood 10 toes down the entire time, unwavering. The Six and MFT, 2 factions that have struggled and largely failed to deliver. Yet I gotta tell you, I felt like the crowd in this moment, I suddenly cared about them. Perhaps it was as simple as the visual. Maybe for me, the idea that MFT could win the titles and jettison the Six over to Raw. That way the tag team division could be freed up once again. Either way, yeah, somehow I was into this. It was a bit compelling, unique, fresh, also heel versus heel, which you rarely see, especially when it comes to factions. So to my utter shock, this gets good. And to answer listener Brett at BZ Not Cheesy, no, there was no reason given why Bo Dallas was not there. He was also missing from their promo last week. Clearly, they're not writing him off because, Solo said, "Go tell Uncle Howdy we say hi," or whatever. So, what's happening here? One also needs to wonder, like, you're doing this 4-on-4 thing. Is this going to be the War Games match? Are they going to shift to this than the expected Vision Bloodline story? I cannot imagine that was intentional, because this would be like a C-level War Games compared to that being A-level in terms of star power and such. Plus, they're going to need to flip the Six from heel to babyface to get the alignment right. And they already killed the SmackDown tag team division. So I don't see how War Games, the match itself, can remain as expected given the Vision turn on Monday. My fingers are crossed that this is actually run as a Survivor Series elimination match on the War Games show. And they don't try to do War Games with this, because while, yes, it could be chaotic and they would all do insane spots together in the ring, it's not big enough to necessitate that type of stipulation, nor would the build get there when you're just establishing really MFT as a new group, with their realignment with Tama Tonga returning on TV just about a month before this show is to start. Let's move to something that was also a surprise, but established and handled even better on SmackDown. We had Damian Priest against Aleister Black in Last Man Standing. Black said something in an earlier brief promo about donning a mask, and while he maintained his entrance music and the candles, he traded the whole raised from a casket deal for a shadowy walkout with a horned mask. Making this pop unintentionally, for me, was a little girl is standing in the first row, hanging over the barricade, staring at him as if she's possessed. And he comes out and looks at her and then keeps walking, almost like he possessed her as part of it. It popped me, and it was unintentional. She was probably just tired. But if you go back and watch it, and you actually think that WWE, like I would love if they did this, they start kayfabing with planted children in the audience where like Black looks at them or fist bumps them or something, and they all of a sudden become possessed. If they could do something like that, and it doesn't even have to be kids, it could be fans too, just regular fans. If they did something like that, it could be pretty cool. Now, as much as I loved the casket raise entrance, I will say this was more intimidating and it was a better overall presentation. Plus, he kept the song and overall aesthetic, which was by far the most important. On top of that, with the reaction that he got upon his entrance, the loudest we've heard in a long time since he returned, I truly believed Black needed to win this match and solidify his legitimacy as not just a contender, but potentially an upper mid-carder who could move into a main event role, at least as a challenger against Cody. Fans literally chanted, "We want tables" at the bell, which was annoying. Priest hit a flatliner after dragging steel steps into the ring. Black hit a pump knee to stop South of Heaven into the steps, immediately catching Priest with a Meteora into the steps for a 7. This was executed perfectly. Awesome, impactful, but super safe. Priest then upturned the steps, did snake eyes into them. Black missed a moonsault ringside only to catch Priest for a sunset flip powerbomb that was supposed to be into those steps, but mostly missed. Priest then pounded a running Black into and over the announce table, where it was revealed Michael Cole sits on an extra pillow these days. Can we just get him a more comfortable chair? Come on, folks. They traded kendo stick shots as Priest attempted old school, only for Black to catch him with a knee. Priest then delivered Razor's Edge into the table, but it didn't collapse this time for a 9 count. The crowd wanted an encore, so Priest again delivered for another 9. Both had Black just sliding his body off the lid to stand. They entered the audience standing atop this manufactured structure when suddenly, out of the corner of the screen, you see a tiny little woman walk out. And then you notice, oh shit, that's Zelina Vega. So she gets in front of Black as a shield, kneels in front of him, seemingly begging Priest, stop, don't hurt him anymore, because she and Priest have a prior relationship. Black appeared as if he didn't want her help, so he tells her to move. Looks like he's willing to take his punishment. Priest obviously refuses to relent, so Black stands up and did one of those like fireball spray things to his face, immediately black massing him to the shoulder, off the top of the structure, threw a table down for the 10 count and the win. I effing loved this so much. When I said that earlier about Black needing to win this, I was prepared to be extremely disappointed because Priest always gets the win here. He's the guy they push, and that's it. This not only established Black through victory, it showed him to be smart and cunning. Waiting to use this feud to align him with Zelina, who has her own established relationship with Priest through their Puerto Rican heritage and all that, was super smart. This is obviously something that also could have been done with Andrade, and I do wonder whether that might have been part of the plan, but I'd say it worked better here because Priest can actually emote and storytell. Obviously, Priest will get his win back at some point, though he actually doesn't need to, and it would be better if he does not. If it does happen, though, hopefully that's like after Black wins the US title, and then Priest challenges him and wins, and so on and so forth. And that's really where this should go. You know, we talked about who might be the one to end Zayn's reign as United States champion. And while it would be great for it to be an NXT call-up or Mello, Black and Vega as a pairing would add significant and much-needed depth to the SmackDown mid-card. I'll also say that Zelina wearing all black with that white streak in her hair. I'll also say that Zelina out there wearing all black with that white streak in her hair.
I was up all night.
On top of the booking, the match was great for Last Man Standing, a stipulation I normally do not like. They reduced the count attempts. They stuck to just having a great wrestling match. They used the stipulation as a way for Priest to not get pinned. The fireball was completely unexpected. Interestingly, Karrion Kross and Scarlett used to use that in NXT, not Black, but it obviously fits his like dark arts gimmick. It's really perfect for him. 4.25 stars, a top tier TV main event. These are the types of matches where Priest and Black truly shine, and they were both allowed to do that here. There is real money, by the way, with Black and Vega together. If you've ever seen them on any of their streaming things, they have an awesome relationship. They play off one another extremely well. Most importantly, they cover for one another's weaknesses. Black has the aura and the character, but Zelina speaks in this authoritative, domineering manner that will sell WWE matches and feuds better than Black can with his like mystic monologuing style. You can let him do his thing, then have her come over the top and hammer it home. It's not that he needs a manager per se, but she's a top tier mouthpiece and the best promo in WWE that is not utilized. She's probably a top 3 promo in the entire women's division. She might be top 2, behind only Becky Lynch. Then you have Zelina, who has a legitimate aura about her now, a character she can sink her teeth into as opposed to being generic babyface who I guess likes video games and manga, or I don't even know how to say that, whatever she was doing. Like I said, I believe there's legitimate money putting these two together. I'm not sure how far it can go. I don't know whether it's main event level, and if it does, whether that necessitates a title around his waist, probably not. But it's a drastic step up from both of them. And I'm really excited to see how all of this transpires with them together. Intercontinental Championship, Dominic Mysterio defending against Penta. Rusev confronted Penta backstage, saying he was angry about not getting this title match, but was apparently promised the winner by Adam Pearce. In the background, Dom was funny, nearly walking into their argument, but pivoting. He was scared, obviously. We should pause here and discuss Dominic's neck tattoo. He's got ink of a luchador mask now under his chin and down his throat, which I just, man, I don't understand these neck tattoos when they are singled out like that. Now, look, Dom has a lot of tats, so it doesn't stick out like the American Nightmare sore thumb, but the rest of his neck being clean does make it look extremely odd, even in comparison to Penta, who also has a neck tattoo, but he has many around his neck, and it plays down into his sleeves. So as far as I'm concerned, the only way this can work for Dom long-term is if he fills out the rest of his neck. Otherwise, it really sticks out like a sore thumb. But the work itself is nice, no question about that. So Dom hit a tope suicida tornado DDT in a real nice spot. Penta answered with a tilt-a-roll backbreaker, huge splash from the ring post outside. Penta hit 2 of 3 amigos with Dom landing the third. The crowd lightly booed Penta for reversing it initially. And that just goes to tell you how over Dom is right now, despite him clearly being a heel. Penta driver was fully landed for a false finish, which means the Mexican Destroyer appears to be his new finisher, at least in some cases. When he tried that, Dom countered into a Michinoku driver. Rusev ran down basically for no reason, so Penta hit a tope con hero. Dom grabbed the title and a bell hammer, distracting the referee with the former and then using the hammer, which he hid in his boot for a double shot, the second in a 619. Plus, he had a frog splash to retain the title. Got universally cheered as a cheating heel. Then he returned the hammer back to the timekeeper. Pretty great work from him, both bell to bell and as a character. He's insanely over right now. And a pretty great match, all things considered, too. I didn't like the Rusev shit at all. Dom could have raked the eyes or run Penta into the ref and done the same finish. There was really no reason for Rusev to run down unless your goal is to create a triple threat for the title after Penta similarly costs Rusev next week. We've seen this before. The question will be, to what end are you needing that triple threat? If it's so Dom can drop the title without being pinned, that's going to be weak. And it could have happened already. So while this does get a good on its own, at least half of it is provisional. I want to see how this entirely plays out. AJ Styles backstage confronted Adam Pearce, pleased with Crown Jewel, even if he did not win. Pearce personally thanked him for creating a moment when Dominic came through talking shit to Styles, angry about already having a rematch scheduled with Rusev. Pearce pointed out that he's been cheating, so when you cheat, you keep defending the titles until you get a clean finish. Styles agreed that more championships needed to be defended, wanting a tag team title match with Dragon Lee against Judgment Day. Clearly the direction this was heading, so it's fine, but they've literally won one match as partners, and now they're getting a title shot. It goes back to what I said earlier about the division being dead. Put the straps on the Vision and move on. Light bad for the booking, though again, I'm glad Dragon Lee is getting regular TV and ring time. It's super important for him. It's just the tag team division itself deserves better, and Styles does too. Why is this what AJ's doing right now? It's really tough to understand. Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss backstage approached Zaruka, saying they were impressive last week, but it takes a lot to level up and step into their spotlight as the best in the industry. They said they don't believe Zaruka are ready for them, so Zarya suggested they prove that they're not ready unless they're scared. Charlotte thought that was disrespectful but bold. Solruka said they have respect for them, but they want the same type of opportunity that they, Bliss and Flair, once got. So the faces accepted but warned they wouldn't hold back. Then there was a fun gimmick about them going in different directions, still not being on the same page. The interaction between them was okay, albeit incredibly and obviously scripted. Immensely disappointing for me is that Flair and Bliss watched Saruka win a match last week, and their reaction was basically, good win. That's not enough to get a title shot, which was the appropriate reaction. Now, 1 week later, with Saruka having done nothing since, a quick backstage interaction leads to a granted match. If they had won a second tag team match in NXT or earlier on SmackDown, okay, I could buy it considering the division is so thin. Now, if this winds up being a non-title match, I'll be totally fine with it. But Saruka getting a potential championship opportunity, despite having accomplished nothing recently as a team and actually losing their prior number one contendership opportunity, would be ridiculous. So despite the storytelling, I'm sorry, that's bad. And I'm also going with the scripted nature of the backstage segment as a reason for that grade. But we'll see what happens next week, whether it's a title match, whether it's not, if they have to win more. We'll determine after the fact whether this entire storyline was good, bad, or of course, ugly. Lastly here, Miz backstage refused to say he turned on Carmelo Hayes, suggesting all of his actions were in good faith, only for Melo to have the audacity to jettison him. Miz said he is the spotlight, he wasn't stealing the spotlight, and Melo missed. Good promo, no doubt, but despite being egotistical and cocky, he kind of came off like a babyface here, and I don't believe that's supposed to be his positioning in this feud. Maybe they're going to switch it up if Melo gets booed and lean into him being an even cockier heel that steals Miz's spotlight. But while I trust Miz to get Melo over, I do continue to have my concerns with the way this is being booked. So that wraps up our full breakdown of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. Obviously, a ton of stuff happened on TV. Probably the best combined week of television, last Friday's Raw, this Monday's SmackDown, that we've had in a couple of months. Just real high quality work across the board from a storytelling perspective, some new interesting storylines and introductions, and of course, match quality on both shows was phenomenal. There were down matches on both, but for the most part, they both had A- or better matches and a couple B+ type matches sprinkled in as well. So real high quality, 4.5 hours of WWE television. We're going to see what happens this Friday on the first SmackDown after Crown Jewel. And then obviously there's this huge cliffhanger until Raw next Monday night, when everything should be back to normal, both in terms of WWE television airing at 8 p.m. Eastern across the board, and the Getting Over Wrestling podcast having the Silver King and Vintage Chris Manini on the Tuesday show, breaking down everything that happened. Now, Silver King will be efforting to get Vintage on the Thursday show to give his thoughts on WWE Crown Jewel and some bullet points, let's say, on what happened across Raw and SmackDown. So look for that at the top of Thursday's show. Then we're going to talk TNA Bound for Glory results, because a lot happened on that show, NXT, and I believe it's going to be the AEW Wrestle Dream Ultimate Preview. Is it really that close? It may well be this weekend. So it's possible that's an Ultimate Preview episode as well. Silver King should really prepare his previews here before taping the podcast, but I believe that is correct. So it's going to be an absolutely loaded Thursday show. That means there's going to be a bonus episode this weekend, an AEW Wrestle Dream instant analysis. Just completely missed that was a thing when I started this show. Clearly it's this weekend. And then, of course, as I said, we'll be back next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel, with our all-in WWE episode, Silver King Vintage, back in the saddle, doing it as we always do it for you right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. On the way out, first, allow me to remind you that here at Getting Over,
It's all about the five.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do too, $5 a month, $50 for an entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show. We would greatly appreciate your financial support. Lastly, follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show that we will read on the air. Don't forget to follow us there. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, where you get full-length audio episodes and full-length video interviews across the board, all three, at Getting Overcast. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.